Tuesday, December 18th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review St. Petersburg. Let's do this. Alright, so back when the local gaming scene was a little bit better than it is now, you know, we met some cool people, and one time we went over and played some games with this guy who was much harder core into gaming than we were, but much less core into other things that we were into. Like, I guess he wasn't a big anime fan. He might have liked anime, I don't know. We didn't know him that well. But we knew him well enough to go and play some board games with him, because you don't really have to know someone that well to do that. Anyway, he was telling us about all these games we didn't know about.
Yep, meanwhile, we're all playing Shadows over Camelot and getting totally punked by the trader.
Yeah, but, you know, that's a game where, well, let's not talk about that game now. But, he showed us this game called Dune. Yes, Dune, the same Dune as written by,
By who, Scott?
Herbert?
Frank Herbert.
Yes, right. Am I right? Okay, let me tell you my Dune situation here. I tried to read Dune because I knew it was some famous sci-fi book way back, like probably between middle and high school or something. It was a long time ago.
1965.
Something like that. And I was not the fan, and I didn't even finish reading the first book. And I'm pretty sure it was the first book because it was just called Dune and nothing else. And I was not a fan. Nowadays, I don't really remember it that well, so who knows if I'm a fan, but then again, I'm not about to find out because I got better things to do than read a book that I probably won't like because I didn't like it the last time. I don't think I've changed that much. Anyway.
We'll probably get some hate mail. We got an email not too long ago from someone. It was one of those YTMNDs, and it was crying Fremen, but it was crying Freeman.
Yeah, it was crying Freeman with
eyes.
blue eyes and this music playing, and it said crying Fremen on top, and I was like... He told me that it was a combination joke between Dune and Crying Freeman, and I was like...
Now, that much was obvious, but...
The problem is that Rim has read some Dune, but read not Crying Freeman, and I've read all of Crying Freeman, but not the Dune, so we needed... Luckily, our friends were here to help us combine to get the joke.
Of course, then I looked at it, and it's just the crying Freeman guy with blue eyes crying.
Yeah. Anyway, so Dune, which I'm not a fan of, but... The guy shows us the Dune game, which is a Avalon Hill bookshelf game from 1979. The game is older than me.
Now, I'm not much of a collector or anything like that. I mean, we had a friend way back who brought over, like, a 1912 era board game that we played.
It was a bad game.
Of course it was a bad game, but at the same time, it was interesting just to see this ancient thing.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing that would do just as well in like a glass case at a museum.
Yeah, you know, the kind of thing that Hungry Joe would have been playing as a kid.
Exactly.
So
this Dune game, we don't actually play the game when we meet the guy, but he tells us all about it. First of all, obviously, it's out of print because it's incredibly old and no one would want such a thing. But the interesting thing about the game is that I think there are 6 different sides that you can be, all the different, you know, races, I guess, that are involved on the planet Dune.
Well, factions, more like.
Factions, all right. And each faction has a different power. But he started to tell us the powers of the different factions. He told us the power of the first faction. And I'm like, I didn't even know how the game worked at all. But I could tell from his description of the power of the faction that it was totally unfair and stupidly powerful. It's like, imagine if there were different factions you could be in Monopoly. And I'd be like, yeah, Monopoly, the top hat gets to roll 4 dice instead of 2. You go, fuck no, that is so unfair. Fuck that. I'm going to be the top hat every time.
He proceeds to tell us what the powers are of all the rest of the factions.
The dog starts with twice as much money.
The car starts with Boardwalk Monopoly and 8 hotels.
The battleship gets hotels for $1 each. That's and the idea of a game with 6 different sides where each side, you know, basically plays by the same rules, but they each have a ludicrous but different superpower. That sounds like a good game, and it's a lot different from a lot of other games we've played. And after I've read the rules last night, basically I bought the game on eBay because it was very hard to buy, and I managed to get a used copy for like $45, which is a steal because I tried to bid on like a new copy and it went for like 120 something.
Yeah, I went back to Millennium Games because that's pretty much if we ever need a game, we can always get it from those guys. And I got the owner and the manager's business cards, and I go in and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a somewhat rare out of print game, and he's like, hit me. The Dune game. He laughs and says, no one who knows what that is would sell it. That game's great.
Anyway, the game, you can buy it on eBay. There are a bunch of copies there, but I got a surprisingly good condition used copy with all the pieces for like $45. And I read the rules last night.
It smells a little bit like grandma, but that's okay.
That's fine. That's fine. And I read the rules, and I can tell you this game, the only game that I find it really similar to is Diplomacy in a way, because you can like bribe anyone with almost no restrictions and at almost at any time, and they have to do whatever the bribe was.
See, now
if
that's
they
important.
Agree to it.
A game that allows that. I mean, you can do that in Monopoly. You can do that in a lot of games, but a game that actually has mechanics or requires people to follow through on deals is a lot more interesting.
You can also make alliances and have joint victories, but you can only make and break alliances at certain junctures in the game. And the third thing I'm going to tell you about this game, because I already told you three things. I guess there's a fourth thing I'm telling you about the game.
Fanatical devotion to the Pope.
Yes. Four things. All right. The other interesting thing about this game is most games, it's like information is either you show it or you don't, right? Like in Tigris and Euphrates, you don't show your tiles. You don't show your points. It's not like, but in Monopoly, you show your money, you show what properties you have, right? In Dune, most of your stuff, you can choose to show or not to show. There's only one thing, I think, these treachery cards, because there's a limit of 4, I think, where at a certain point in the game, which is the point at which you can get more treachery cards, you have to show how many you have, so that way there's no cheating. But other than that, I think you don't have to show. So I really like that you can show or not show.
Well, we've been, partly because we don't have the 5 people around all the time to play the big 5 and 6 player games that we haven't exhausted yet. We've exhausted 2 and 3 player gaming, and we need more games. And it seems like eventually we're going to get to the point where the only games that are really not solved or not broken or not random are the games that are basically, the game is just the setting, and the actual game is more like Diplomacy, where you're gaming the other people. You're playing directly against other people, where the stakes are kind of more up in the air.
Well, I think, what games like this game and Diplomacy is they're sort of like board games, but they're really sort of role-playing games, but also psychology games. And, it's just you're doing role-playing and psychology in an attempt to manipulate the board.
Now, granted,
rather than just manipulating the board directly with role-playing and psychology not mattering.
I've been known to do that sort of thing in, say, Shogun, but...
Yeah, but there's a line where it sort of like goes from metagaming to role-playing, and it's sort of like Diplomacy and Dune are on one side and Shogun's on the other side.
Yeah, but regardless, I'm very much looking forward to playing this game.
Yeah, even though I don't like Dune, I'm sure this game will be cool, at least from what I've read.
So what do you got in the news since...
Oh, it's such a bad news week, you have no idea.
There's plenty of good news.
Yeah, how come it took you so long to find a news story and I found one before you did?
Well, there's plenty of good news, but there's not... I've already talked about all of it. I mean, the Wii is selling out. Oh, snap.
That's going to be your news, so you better not...
The PS3 isn't selling out. Oh, snap.
Anyway, so there was an announcement today or recently that there's going to be all sorts of, like, better games on the iPod, and that's not surprising because there's new iPods out. They came out recently. They have better screens and better stuff all around. And so I think there's games like, Peggle and Sonic the Hedgehog are going to come to the iPod.
Sonic the Hedgehog is the one that got my attention here.
Yeah. Now, I guess there's, something to be said for this, and that there's a lot of iPods out there, possibly even more iPods than DSs. I don't know. It's pretty close. I imagine there's more iPods, but I don't know if more of the new iPods that are capable of playing Sonic the Hedgehog. I got to see. So it makes sense that, someone would try to make and sell games for a device capable of playing them and, try to make a lot of money. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense, to me at least, is why anyone would ever actually want to play a game on their iPod.
Now, it's not just a matter of, what if you are just a casual gamer and maybe you don't have a DS, even though you probably should, especially if you're a casual gamer. But to me, playing a game on like an iPod is just so unfun and not worth it that I'd rather be doing something else. It's like, if I'm going to kill time, I might as well read a book or something, because it's just not worth it to play a game on these not gaming consoles.
Yeah, it's like, if you have a camera, right? Imagine if you have a digital camera. It's designed to take pictures. It's possible. A digital camera has a screen and buttons. You could, theoretically, I see no reason why not, write some software to play a video game on your digital camera. But because the design of the digital camera is such that playing the game would be so uncomfortable and painful, it's not even worth it. It's not something you would want to do. I'd rather play no video game at all than play a video game in such a painful way. I mean, yeah, so I think part of the reason people do play games on this is because they're probably people who don't have any gaming systems and they carry their iPod with them anyway. And they're bored, and they don't feel. I guess they might be the kind of person who feels ashamed whipping out a DS or something, but they don't feel ashamed whipping out their iPod and pushing buttons on it.
Now I point out that this brings up another kind of tangential issue that I've noticed on the train a lot, because I, like you and like many other people in this country, take a train to work every day. I have a long commute where I'm sitting in a chair, relatively comfortable, but there's nothing to do unless I bring something. Mm-hmm. And almost every day, I get on that train, and I see a lot of bored people without any form of entertainment on them whatsoever, just sitting there really bored.
Yeah, I see some people, like, they read a newspaper, but then they finish it. I see some people with a book. You know, there's plenty of people who do something.
Oh, yeah, but there are a lot of people who don't.
Yeah, it's almost, I might say it's like 40% don't do anything.
And it's not
besides, like, look out the window.
Yeah, and I mean, you can argue, well,
some of them are sleeping. Sleeping is okay.
No, but I can get to that, too, because I have a neck pillow, and I sleep very comfortably on the train with earplugs and a neck pillow. I've seen one other person in the entirety of the time I've been commuting to New York City with any sort of pillow or anything to make themselves more comfortable.
I see there's a good, like, handful of people who...
But not many. Most people who sleep, like, their neck is just bent sideways.
Yeah, most people sleeping are just bent sideways, but there are people who have, like, you know, the little mask so the light doesn't get in their eyes.
Oh, yeah, I've been thinking about getting one of those.
Okay, that's a little too much.
Why not?
The earplugs and the neck pillow are enough.
I take the 5:30 fucking train in. I'm going to sleep.
You can sleep. There's nothing wrong with sleeping on the train, but I think the eye covering mask thing is too much.
No, because then I don't have the light, because sometimes the lights are on in the train.
Yeah, I don't like. I wish there was a way to like they should have one car in the train with the lights off.
A lot of times they do, but I don't know if that's
usually
on
by
purpose.
accident.
But the issue is there are a lot of people who I see, and there are people who aren't entertaining themselves at every moment because maybe they want to think or relax, but I know a lot of these people because I can see them fidget and see them just look around, or like they start watching the screen, the silent screen of the DVD player that someone 2 seats up from them has, and they just, obviously they're bored out of their minds. They knew they were going to be on a train. Why didn't they bring some form of entertainment? Why do people not think of that?
I don't know.
And as a result, I think I see a lot of people playing just like they'll have their cell phone out and they'll be playing like that broken Pac-Man that comes with a lot of shitty phones that just doesn't even work.
That Pac-Man is just so bad, it's not even fun. I mean, it's worse than no Pac-Man.
It's worse than doing nothing. I see people doing things that are less fun than doing nothing.
If I had a choice between sitting on the train and playing the shit cell phone Pac-Man or sitting there bored, I would sit there bored because playing the cell phone Pac-Man is painful. That would be like torture if someone made me play the cell phone Pac-Man. So I imagine Sonic the Hedgehog iPod is quite similar to that.
But at the same time, these are games like Sonic where you're going to have to buy it, right? It's not just going to be free on your iPod.
I think it's like $5 on iTunes or something like that. So, I don't know exactly the cost, but I guess it's $5.
Who are they marketing to? I mean, I would guess the only people who buy this are people who have an iPod, and then the idea of having a video game on their iPod just makes them get all wet.
Could be. Actually, you know, the Peggle isn't a game that would be too bad on the iPod. But even so, Peggle's a game that really needs more screen real estate. And maybe on the iPhone it would work, but on the iPod, especially the Nano, too small to see.
I would make the argument beyond that Peggle is not a game. It is merely a colorful time waster. There is no amount of skill in that game.
No, that's not a game of skill at all. It's like pachinko. But I think the iPhone, though, I think games on the iPhone could be pretty good. It's got that big dual touch screen.
No, you could basically run computer games on the iPhone.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. We're talking about iPod here. iPhone is actually a good gaming platform, I think, and I think that is a route that Apple should really explore in greater depth.
I just never understand why I see these people playing these chintzy games. They either obviously didn't plan ahead and now are bored and have no form of entertainment, or, for whatever reason, they just choose not to carry a form of entertainment.
Also, those games are horrendously overpriced. On my Verizon phone, there's actually like a Phoenix Wright game I can buy, right? And I thought about buying it just to play every Phoenix Wright, but I'm pretty sure it's just one of the episodes from Phoenix Wright 1, so I don't really want it because I've already played it on the DS. But it's so... I've seen screenshots of it. It's just so bad, and they charge like $5 for it. And... you know what? For like $5 on the Virtual Console, I can get a whole Nintendo game that's better than the cell phone Phoenix Wright. So it's just a ripoff.
So, in other news, the Wii's selling out.
Oh, gee, that's been news for like since I bought one last year on the launch day.
I guess I didn't. I mean, I expected the Wii to do well. And the fact that it's doing as well as it is far beyond what I expected. I'm not entirely sure what's going to come of all this.
It's just another Tickle Me Elmo situation. You'll see.
Oh, yeah, it is. The thing is...
next year, there'll be plenty of them.
Oh, yeah, I know there'll be plenty of them. It's not like there's going to be this perpetual shortage forever. But the thing is, the Wii's selling like crazy. It's going to keep selling like crazy for a long time. And it's pretty much probably going to be, all told, the #1 console in terms of people who own one.
Well, I don't know. DS is still ahead.
Well, home console. The
Okay.
DS is separate. The DS is
right.
special.
All right. And PC doesn't count either.
So think about that. Basically, Nintendo now is going to have the #1 and the #2 in terms of units out there with people who will buy games in the world.
Which means game companies, the third parties, despite their hating of Nintendo, will be forced to make games for the Nintendo systems in order to make
I do
the money.
point out, though, a lot of franchises that shy away from Nintendo, you also see a lot of those really crappy third-party people who make as many Game Boy and Wii games as they can possibly make at every possible moment. Every license, every franchise,
Yep.
every cats, dolphins, pigs, whatever the next game is. And
Every kid's cartoon you've ever heard of, even the really obscure ones.
I gotta say, I think they have a much better racket going than a lot of these, I don't know, like Activision, when they're like, oh yeah, Nintendo consoles, we don't dig that anymore. It's not our bag.
Well, video games is a really weird situation, the market right now. I mean, look at the movie theater, right? The movie theater. You've got these people, they're spending lots and lots of money on movies that are large, not all of them, but blockbuster movies. They're generally mass appeal, low brow or lower brow than typical.
But I'm quite lowbrow.
All right. Or generally low brow on average. Big budgets, big profits, big on the special effects and the fanciness with a mass appeal, right? In the art house movie theater, you've got the low budgets, relatively higher brow, right? More critically acclaimed type stuff, only going out to a smaller, group of people. In the video games, you've got these high budget, high production, typically higher brow, more complicated video games going out to the smaller hardcore market. And then you've got these low budget, low brow, mass appeal things going out to the mass market. And it's totally backwards. And I wonder if it's ever going to correct itself.
I mean, if you want to make money in video gaming for real, and you're not really an
cell phone games, like we just said, is where the money's at.
Not just cell phone games, shit games.
Yeah, make a Tetris clone. You'll make more money.
Just
than...
make little crap games. Buy yourself a franchise license to whatever thing you think kids are
You'll
going to like.
make more money with Diner Dash than you will with Halo 4.
That's for sure. Especially because you could do Diner Dash in a weekend by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, even if Halo 4 makes, hundreds of millions of dollars, Diner Dash can also make hundreds of millions of dollars, and Diner Dash only took one guy like an hour to make, and maybe you hired an artist for a few $1,000s.
But one interesting thing that is coming out of all this is that Reggie came out and basically said, all right, bundlers, listen up.
Oh, I hate those bundlers.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this in the city because, a lot of people at my work are trying to get Wii's and can't. They go to the Nintendo store, they can't. They can't
You
get
should have
one.
got one last year with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so there's this one kind of highbrow, the hoity-toity fancy people will shop here electronics store right in Midtown. And I walk past it.
Datavision?
Might have. I don't remember which one
Hate
it is.
Datavision.
Because I walk by this place and I see in the window.
It's got it's red.
They have a pile of like 30 Wii's.
Mm-hmm.
And you can buy them for like $500 because they come with a million absolutely useless bundled things that no one wants.
Well, I mean, the big money, if you're a retail store selling game consoles, you don't make too much money on the console.
Oh, you make jack all from the console.
You don't make too much money on the games. That's why they pre-order, so that they can maximize their game selling profit. You make most of the money
on the used games.
Well, you don't make most of your money on the used games. Well, you make the profit margins. The margins are biggest on the used things and the accessories. So when someone sells a Wii, the reason that you would sell Wii's is because someone coming in to buy a Wii obviously doesn't have one yet, and they're going to need some accessories. They're going to need some extra controllers. They're going to need some memory cards. They're going to need whatever, right? So the problem is there's a lot of third-party accessories out there that people don't normally buy a lot of, right?
Or there are the unnecessary accessories that just don't do anything.
Yeah, that some third-party company made this accessory that no one wants and no one needs, or there's these unpopular games that no one wants and no one will buy.
Though I gotta say, I saw an accessory that while it is definitely dumb and not something I would get, whoever made this is brilliant. It's this third-party thing, and it costs quite a bit of money, and it is the accessory kit for Wii Sports. All it is a little tennis racket that goes around your Wiimote, a little golf club that goes around your Wiimote, and a little baseball bat that goes around your Wiimote.
Do they have a little bowling ball that the Wiimote goes into?
No.
Oh, boo, sucks. Anyway, or a boxing glove?
No boxing glove.
Oh, fuck that. Okay. But, they make the biggest margins on those things. So if you've got, say, 50 Wiis, and you're not going to get any more Wiis because there's so few of them being made, only 1.8 million per month in the world, you want to sell as many accessories as possible along with those Wiis, because that's the way to make the most money. So they put them all in a box with a bunch of accessories, and they say, if you want to buy the Wii, you got to buy all this other shit you don't want.
Now, I wonder, I don't think Nintendo has any sort of power over this, because while Reggie said, we've contacted them, whatever, he didn't say anything specific. And also,
I don't think he's gonna say anything specific,
because I don't think Nintendo's gonna do anything. There's nothing they can do.
I think what Nintendo
It's capitalism.
No, I think what Nintendo will do is if retailers are being really egregious with their Wii bundling, and Nintendo doesn't like it, Nintendo will decrease the supply of Wiis to those retailers and increase
won't
the supplies
care.
to other retailers.
Because it's almost Christmas anyway, and the boom is gonna pretty much not die, but go back to normal right after the holidays.
But meanwhile, GameStop/EB is a very egregious bundler. But Nintendo apparently is doing this nice rain check deal with them. So
I was actually
way to go, Nintendo.
I was about to talk about that last.
All right.
There's Nintendo announced a Wii rain check program, and basically, if anyone buys a Wii through this program through, I think, any time in December, they'll be guaranteed a Wii before the end of January.
Not bad.
So hopefully that could kind of fuck all the people who are bundling things, because maybe grandma might be smart and say, all right, Jimmy, I couldn't get you a Wii, but I got you this piece of paper that guarantees you a Wii, and I got you a bunch of games to play as soon as your Wii comes.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, the only other thing is that, all the economist, analyst people are saying that Nintendo is losing money because of all the people who want Wiis but can't get one because the supply is too low.
Now, the thing is, who wants a Wii now and doesn't get one, who isn't just going to get one in February?
Well, I think that there's some people that not a number greater than zero of people who, because they can't get a Wii for the kid or whatever on the holiday, they feel as if they have to get something, and they don't want to get the kid a piece of paper because that makes them feel bad because they're consumer materialist whores, and they're gonna go out and buy something else, maybe an Xbox 360.
See, but here's the thing:
maybe a TV, maybe a DVD
I
player.
am fairly certain,
maybe an iPod.
Just knowing people, that anyone who does that, the Wii is going to get purchased eventually anyway.
I don't know. I think there are a number of people who they buy for the holidays.
Oh, I know. But
they got something, and they're not going to get the Wii.
You don't forget, because then the kid...
Maybe next year they'll get the Wii.
The kid will be happy because he got a gift. But come February, when all his friends have Wiis, how come I don't have a Wii, Mom? Zelda, Mom. Zelda.
We'll see what happens. We'll see. I don't think it's going to make too much of an impact, but I think that is going to hurt them some. Well,
it's not actually going to hurt them, I don't think, because they already made their money.
No, they're not going to suddenly be in the poorhouse or anything, but they potential money they could have made if they could have
I think it's negligible. I think it's absolutely 100%
I think if they could have met the
negligible.
Wii demand, they would have made a lot more money than they are now.
I think the only reason that is true is because having money now is worth more than having money later.
Nah, I think there's more to it.
I don't think.
I think the people who analyze these things, who are experts, know more than you.
Yeah, and you know what? The people who analyze it, the articles I read, didn't say Nintendo's going to lose jack all. What they said is, basically, Nintendo's profits are going to be delayed because of this, and Nintendo could have another billion right now by the end of the year that they're not going to have just because they can't sell them fast enough.
Yeah.
But they'll have it for next quarter, so it won't matter.
We'll see if they have. I don't think they'll have a billion next quarter. But anyway,
not a billion.
They don't have to worry about
a billion monies.
Either way, they don't have to worry about monies. That's for sure.
They're not going to sell a billion Wiis.
A billion Wiis. Oh man.
Anyway, things of the day. Let's not talk about Nintendo or Wii's for at least a couple months.
All right, it'll probably be a while because there aren't going to be any games coming out for a while, and I still got to beat all the ones we just got.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Mario Galaxy yet.
I haven't beat it. I played
think,
it a whole bunch, then I stopped playing it.
And I feel as though I should review Simon's Quest now that I'm playing it again.
No.
It's fucking awesome.
Sucks.
Right, anyway, the other day we were looking for stuff. For some reason, we ended up talking about Ross Perot. So I start YouTubing. I find videos of Ross Perot. We watch him talking about some intelligent things and some crazy things and NAFTA and, being Ross Perot. And then, we're about to finish up, maybe go get some dinner. And we noticed that in the related videos section of something we looked at related to Ross Perot at some point was what looked like a butt.
And Rim, of course, could not help but click on the butt.
Well, not right away. We look at it and the title's in Japanese. And I'm like, is that a butt? And everyone looks at it and says, yeah, I think that's a butt. But I thought we couldn't have butts on YouTube. I thought there was no butt policy.
YouTube is butt free.
Maybe it's a sham butt. I wonder what it is. So we zoom in. Emily's starting to read the Japanese. And I just go, screw it. I click on it. And what I watched, was something that did involve butts. But they were sham butts. They weren't real butts.
Yeah, what comes out of a sham butt?
Shampoo.
Oh, man. That joke made one person laugh.
So...
Hope someone listening laughed at my shampoo joke.
I'm not sure how to describe this, but it's a Japanese cover with the Numa Numa song melody, but the lyrics are kind of like apartment party and show me your butt, and there's sham butts and this epic guy with an epic mustache and an epic leather jacket, and
it's crazy go nuts.
I don't know what to say about this. I think it's kind of awesome, and I'm not sure why.
All right, you got anything else to say? No.
Watch it. Good
Okay.
God.
Yeah, it's worth watching at least once. Funny video. All right. So you know that guy, Greg Kostikian, who I've become more a fan of lately. He's the guy who made the Paranoia RPG, and he runs the Manifesto games, and he has this new blog, Play This Thing, which I've mentioned before, which is an awesome blog everyone should read. And on that blog, he mentioned this RPG that he wrote, I guess. Basically, some RPGs out there aren't actually meant to be played.
Like Hall, Human Occupied Landfill. That is, read the rules to that game, and they're fantastic. It is a hilarious book. Play that game, and you're stupid.
It is something, because an RPG is really just a book, but it's a book that contains rules but also other things. And there seems to be this art of making RPGs where you don't even need to actually play the game. You could the book itself is the enjoyable part,
Yeah, well,
And-
even when I was really young, before I found people who would play D&D with me, reading those D&D books was great, and I would just pour over them.
Yeah, so the sort of people, they make RPGs on purpose that aren't meant to be played, or I guess they technically could be played, but it's not really going to be realistic or fun or interesting to play it. But reading the book and reading the rules is entertaining, usually humorous. So he made his game called Violence, the role-playing game of egregious and repulsive bloodshed. And I'm not going to describe the game any more than that. It's
probably all you need to know.
It's not a game that's really meant to be played. I guess you could play it. But reading it is quite humorous and quite awesome. And it's a free PDF. So if you like the RPGs, and maybe if you can laugh at, stupid violence jokes, then this is for you. And it's free.
So, I realized recently that we never really talked about this game in any depth on the show, I don't think.
No, well, I thought we talked about it, kind of, but I guess not. So who cares, even if we did a whole show on it before, whether we did or didn't. We're doing a show on it now, screw you.
St. Petersburg.
As in the Russian city, not as in, I guess, the Florida city. All right, I can sum this game up real quickly. You ready? It's a card game. There is a board. The version you can buy now has a board and some other pieces, but it's basically just a card game that also has money. And you have money at the beginning of the game. You buy cards. Cards either give you money or points. Your goal is to get points. That's the whole game.
It's a growth management game in that there are multiple kinds of resources, money and points.
Yep.
You want money in the first part of the game because you need enough money to bankroll your point getting later in the game.
Yeah, if you just start out at the beginning of the game buying points or cards that get you points, you will have no more money and you will not be able to get any more points. and then you will be done. While other people who might buy things that get them money, but then never buy any points, will end up with just fistfuls of money and no points.
And on the surface, that's pretty much all this game is.
Yeah, you're trying to balance your expenditures of money so that over the course of the game, you continue to get enough money to buy as many points as you can, but not too many points, because then you won't be able to buy any more, and you'll actually get less than you think you were going to get. Or not too much money, because then you could have bought points instead of, buying money.
So, like I said, a growth management game, but the way it plays out is actually fantastic. And while the game eventually will break down, as all board games do when you play it enough times, I think the core concepts of this game, and this is kind of important, I think we'll talk about this at the end too, could be used, I believe, to great effect in other kinds of games.
Yeah, this is a game where every mechanic in the game is an amazing, beautiful, perfectly executed game mechanic. And all the mechanics work together very well, but the resulting game just isn't a game that is strategically deep. But all the mechanics of the game are great game mechanics that, should be used in many other games to great effect.
And the game is slightly strategic and very tactical, at least up until the point where you and all your friends have figured the game out completely, and then...
The game is also fun, even if you sort of figured it out. I have fun playing St. Petersburg, even though I know exactly what to do. And you don't even need to play the first turn because it's automatic at this point.
Sometimes the first several turns are basically automatic.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, I think it speaks very well of this game, this Rio Grande Hansheim-look game, that... Despite the fact that I feel as though our group has solved it and that winning basically comes down to, do the good Jews come up early on or do they come up later?
Oh, all right. So you want to go into a little more depth to explain what the Jews are?
Well, it's not just Jews. There's also chairs and squares.
Okay, so there's 4 kinds of cards in the game. There's the green worker cards, which are the chairs, because the symbol on them is a chair, or it looks like a chair, and whether it's a chair or not, I don't give a shit.
You get a card with a chair on it, and you get a little wooden chair.
Yes.
And then there's the buildings, which are primarily the point generation things, a.k.a. the Kremlin.
Yeah, the green...
It's a little Kremlin symbol.
The green workers mostly give money. They're your primary source of money. The blue Kremlins are your primary source of points, but they can sometimes give money.
Now, the squares are the upgrades, and it's just a big square.
Yeah, those aren't actually things you can buy on their own. You have to upgrade existing things with them, and it lets you get really powerful stuff.
Now, the last kind of card is the nobility. They're orange, and they give you money and points, and extra bonus points at the end of the game.
Which are very important.
Now, you might have noticed that I didn't say nobility. I said something else. Now, Scott actually pointed this out when we first started playing, but I'll link to this. Here's a picture of the 4 symbols from the game. Now, guess which one is the nobility, and then from there, I want you to pay attention to certain features it may have.
It's Jewish?
Possibly. So, we're playing this game for the second time, I think, because I played it at a con once. I didn't even think of this, and then Scott pulls up the thing, and he's like, all right, time to draw the Jews.
Yeah. I'm Jewish. That's what they are. There's no... I mean, actually, they're all Russians, technically, but...
Russian Jews.
The icon that represents the nobility it has a really big nose. And it makes lots of money.
I cannot help but assume that this is intentional.
I can't assume anything else.
There is no way this is not intentional.
All right, so... is there anything else to really say about this game? I mean...
the way the game plays out is, the cards... You'll go through 4 phases, and every player, you can play up to 4. The game works kind of okay with 3. It's kind of broken with 2, but you can play it. But 4 is what you want to be. Everyone will have one of these tokens, and then every round of the game, you do the workers, and then the buildings, and then the aristocrats, and then the squares.
Yep.
And the way you do it is, the cards are laid out on the board. And basically, you fill the board up with cards of whatever phase it is. Then people can buy cards going round robin until their heart's content. Once everyone is passed, then you score all the things of that type. So in the worker round, you put out workers, then you buy workers, but you can buy other stuff, but then you score only workers. So you might have bought a Kremlin or a square, but you're not going to be able to get anything from those things.
Right. And and if something is put out on the board and no one buys it, it just kind of sticks around for a while. And that means, so let's say the board is empty and it's the Kremlin round. So you put out a whole row of Kremlins and maybe half the Kremlins get bought. Okay, the other half of the Kremlins stay on the board, and then we deal out the aristocrat Jews to fill up the other half of the board. So if you want more Jews to get drawn from the deck, you'll buy more Kremlins. You see?
Now, this creates a very interesting, even odd left-right mechanic to the game. We haven't talked a lot about left-right mechanics, I don't think, because we haven't reviewed a lot of those games, but a lot of modern German-style games try to avoid the left-right phenomenon, whereby you have more of an effect or less of an effect game-wise on the person to your left or right just by the way the game works. Usually because, to make things simple, a lot of games just go clockwise.
Yep. I mean, in any game where it's, okay, take your turn, then the person to the left takes their turn. In some of those games, depending on the rules, the person to your right might have a big advantage over you, and you'll have a big advantage over the person to your left, and then so on and so forth.
Now, sometimes this is balanced very well, but a lot of times it's just because it would have made the game too complex or not fun to play to skip the whole just go clockwise mechanic. So a lot of older German games have this problem where if I sit to the left or the right of Scott matters a lot in how the game's going to turn out in the end. El Grande had this problem.
Yeah, for example, if I'm sitting down to play this game, and I know that you have an advantage over the person to your left and a disadvantage to the person to your right,
I want to sit on one side of someone who's bad at the game.
I will sit to the left of the newbie, and I will sit to the right of Rim to damage him the most, and I'll probably win if I do that.
Now, this game gets around that in that you deal out the rolls randomly at the beginning of the game. So I might start with the workers, or I might start with the Jews, or I might start with the Kremlins, or I might start with the squares.
Starting with the squares sucks, in the first round anyway.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like you get an advantage in the long run for that. But it depends, too, because you do it randomly.
Yep.
So clockwise, counterclockwise, the order that the things are in is random. And then after every set of 4 rounds, before you start a new turn, to use the old D&D or round versus turn, everyone passes their little fetish, their little token to the left. And then you continue. So if Scott has the Jews, he's on my right, and then I have the Kremlins. I pass the Kremlins to the person on my left, and then Scott gives me the Jews.
Yep. All right, so basically the
Oh, I guess I didn't finish how that works. The why that's the even odd mechanic instead of the left-right mechanic.
Oh, yeah, I guess not.
So since you're drawing cards and buying cards, and you only fill up, say, the Kremlins when the Kremlin round starts, let's say no one buys any workers. The workers thing stays full. Well, then it's my turn to do the Kremlins, and because I'm the one whose turn it is, I get first pick of the Kremlins, and whoever has the chair gets first pick of the workers. If no Kremlins come out, I kind of lose that advantage. So I kind of, especially with Jews, but I'll get to why that's the reason, if I want a square or a Kremlin or whatever, I have to make sure that at least enough of them will be put out to where if everyone buys one, I will be able to buy one.
Yes, for example, let's say there are 3 players, right? And Rim is to my left, and he currently has the chair. That means, that if I want to get a worker, which is the chair, there need to be at least 3 empty spaces on the board. If there's only 2 empty spaces, and then we deal out 2 new workers, Rim buys one, the next person buys one, if they want to, which they probably will, I will not get one. There will not be one there for me to buy no matter how much money I have. So that gives me a strong incentive to buy a square or some other card before that part of the game comes around so that there will be 3 open spaces, meaning I can get a worker. Now, but once I open the 3rd open space, since the game goes around and around and around until everyone's done, Rim can then buy another card, opening up a 4th space. So he'll get 2 workers and each of us will get 1, and so on and so forth. So there's sort of this, you're trying to buy things to leave a good number of open spaces so that you will get the right number of, new cards available to you, but you don't want to buy a bunch of useless crap just to be able to have the opportunity to buy useful crap later, because then you're losing all your money on stuff that doesn't do anything.
Now this, in addition to the Jew mechanic, which we'll get to, and in addition to the hand, which I'll also get to right now, actually adds a fairly significant amount of tactical depth to the game. Even though it's a very simple set of tactics, at the same time, you can buy a card or take a card or not buy a card and force someone else to now have to buy a suboptimal card to get the thing that they know they need in the next round. And there's definitely this game if you are fighting with other players to make sure you get exactly what you need every round and that the math all works out.
And it's really not all that complicated once you sort of play the game a couple times,
So the
figuring
hand.
this thing out.
And-
The hand.
Anytime you're sitting there and it's your action, because you just keep going round robin. All right, I can buy a card, or I can pass, or I can take a card for free into my hand.
But
And
you
my
can only
hand-
hold so many cards in your hand.
My hand has a limit of 3 cards.
Yep.
Now I've denied someone else that card, and I can buy it from my hand anytime I want. So at any point when I could just buy a card from the board at any turn, instead I can say, no, I'm building this card from my hand.
Yep, so for a really awesome card, the basic strategy with the hand is this. A really awesome card comes out, you have a chance to buy it because you can go first or whatever. You know that someone else is going to buy that if you let it go, but you don't have enough money to buy it yourself. So you pick it up and put it in your hand, thus keeping it safe and buying it later. That's the basic strategy of the hand. It's also not the best strategy of the hand, but it is there.
Well, what you want to do beyond that is you also have to look at, well, I need to make another card get drawn in the worker phase. So I got to buy another thing, but I don't want any of these buildings yet. It's too early in the game. I'll just take that library into my hand.
You take the card into your hand, now there's an open space, which means another card is going to get dealt, and the even odd game, you win that right now. You don't have to spend any money right now, and you took a card into your hand that would have otherwise maybe disappeared from the game, and you can buy it later when, if it would have shown up later, you would have bought it anyway.
Now, then again, now you have the problem of, I've already drawn 2 cards into my hand. If I draw a 3rd card, and then some opportunity comes up later where I would need to draw a card, I can't. And the game is just, it's really fun as a result with all this.
All right, so the worker cards are primarily a way to get money. You buy them, they give you money. The Kremlins are primarily cards to get you points. You buy them, you get points. The Jew cards, the aristocrats, the nobles, whatever, they give you money. But they cost a lot more than the workers, and they usually give you less money than the workers. So it's kind of like, why would you buy them? Well, some of the more expensive aristocrat cards give you money and points, which a few other cards do that as well, but those are really powerful cards. And the game is actually sort of broken, where if those cards show up right at the beginning of the game, then someone can get them, buy them right away, and then sort of win, and there's not much anyone else can do about it unless they get similarly powerful cards.
Yeah, pretty much if the second biggest Jew in the normal deck comes up in the first round, whoever gets that card is 95% likely to win the game. You might as well just
unless
stop
they're
playing.
a total nub. But even if they are a total nub, they might win because it's that powerful. So a lot of people play with a rule where you reshuffle the cards if one of those powerful cards comes up in the first turn. But anyway, so why buy these aristocrat cards? Why are they so great if they don't get you that much money and they cost a lot and only the really powerful ones are really powerful? The reason is this. In addition to the points you get for buildings that give you stuff all the time, you get points at the end of the game for the number of unique aristocrats. So, for example, at the end of the game, I have 5 authors, which is the lowest level aristocrat. That doesn't do much for me. Now, let's say I have an author, a judge, a building designing guy, the lady in waiting or mistress of something, whatever his name is, I forget.
Mistress of ceremonies.
Mistress of ceremonies, and the comptroller, right? That's 5 different aristocrats, right? There's a little table on the board. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but at the very end of the game, you look at that table just once. I have 5 unique, different named aristocrats. You get a crap ton of points all at once, and that's usually the thing that means winning and losing.
So you've got the one method of generating points where you build buildings. Earlier is better generally, and so say I build a building that gives me 2 victory points. Every round for the rest of the game, I get 2 victory points, and I start pulling ahead.
So buying that card earlier in the game gets you more points, but buying it later in the game is probably a lot easier to afford it. So it's pretty tough, because buying it earlier on might mean you don't have enough money to get more money, because you need money to make money. That's the rule of the world.
Capitalism.
Yep. But buying it later on, when you have money, you can afford to buy it, you get less points out of it.
Now, there's some other fun things, like if you buy a building or any card that you already have out in front of you, you get a 1 discount for every one you have.
Right. So if I buy an author costs $4. Then another author shows up. I can buy that author for $3. If another author shows up, I can buy it for $2.
Now, what this and all these kind of, people generally want different cards just depending on their situation, but the game seems to be set up to cause people to desire cards, sometimes the same cards, sometimes different cards, and as a result creates a lot of tactical situations that if the game were even slightly less complex would not be there at all, and the game wouldn't be in any way enjoyable.
I think the only other mechanic in the game is that if a card sits out on the board and no one buys it, it eventually goes to the bottom half of the board where it's $1 cheaper. So even if I have 2 authors, an author comes out, that could cost me usually $2, but no one else wants it. It goes to the bottom of the board. Now it costs me $1. And now I have 3 authors, and you can, by penny pinching like that and by biding your time, you can really save a lot of money. But then you got to think about it, though. If I would have bought that author a turn earlier, sure, it would have cost me an extra $1, but the author would have given me an extra $1 from being in my pile, so it's tough. It's tough. All right.
We could talk a little bit about how to win at the game, I guess.
I think that's what we should do. First of all, if the judge or the mistress, whatever, comes up on the first turn,
or the comptroller,
the comptroller is pretty close, but any of those 3 incredibly powerful aristocrat cards that give you points and money, if any of those show up early in the game, either buy them immediately or pick them up, put them in your hand, and then buy them as soon as you can afford them, because you will make a zillion points and $1 zillion and win. And it'd be really hard for anyone to stop you unless they do the same thing.
2, buy workers. Always buy workers.
Yes.
Buy as many as you can. There is almost pretty much in the last 2 rounds of the game or when you might not want to be buying workers. You want to buy as many workers as you can afford every time the opportunity presents itself.
Yes, workers, generally all the workers give you $3 a turn, right? Well, the most expensive worker is the most expensive worker we're going to talk about is the ship making guy.
Well, there's one other one.
Yeah, well, I know we're going to talk about him. And he costs $7. So if you buy him, even on the first turn, that's a good deal because the game is a lot longer than 3 turns. That's going to make you a lot of money. It's worth it. And once you buy one ship guy, every other ship guy will cost you $1 less, and there's a lot of them. So the second ship guy will cost you $6, the next one will cost you $5, the fourth, and the only time you don't want to buy a worker pretty much is like, let's say there's 2 turns left in the game, right? And I know that the game, well, you can tell when the game's going to end because it ends when one of the 4 decks of cards runs out. So if one of the decks is really close to running out, and I think the game's going to end in 2 or 3 turns, and I don't have any ship building guys, and they cost 7 and one comes up, then buying one might be a bad idea because it'll cost me 7 and the game probably won't last 3 turns for me to make a profit.
Now, 2, I'm not going to tell you what round this is likely to happen in. Likely, it's pretty much guaranteed to happen unless you're playing with total nubs. But there's a round where everything will get reshuffled, and you'll notice that a whole bunch of cards fall off the board after the square phase, and a whole bunch of workers come out. You should be able to anticipate when this is going to happen and have saved money so that you can buy all the workers that your idiot friends didn't have money for because they didn't realize this would happen.
Yeah, because generally the game starts, and when the game starts, they put out what? Let's say it's a 3-player game, you put out what, 6 workers? Or yeah. And if it's a 4-player game, you put out 8 workers.
But people buy workers, and then it fills up with Kremlins. People buy some stuff, fills up with, keeps filling up. Then in the next round, a lot of those cards go to the bottom half of the board where they're discounted.
Because no one could afford them in the first round and they didn't have enough money.
And no one wants them in the second round, so they're going away.
Yep, so only a few workers come out in the second round. But then in the third round, a whole bunch of workers come out, usually. And this is the time when people finally have money because it's already been 2 rounds. And now there's a whole bunch of workers available. So this is the time you have to, if you don't have money at this point in the game to buy as many workers as you possibly can, you lose basically. Because if you don't have money and you spent it on something else, everyone else is going to buy a whole bunch of workers, and you buying 1 less worker, you might think, oh, I bought 1 less worker than those other guys. They got 1 extra worker, not a big deal. That's 3 money times the number of turns left in the game, which is a lot. A whole lot.
Yeah, basically at any point, know how many workers you have and know how many workers everyone else playing has. If you were ever down by more than one at any point, you're done. It's over. You've lost.
Pretty much, because, there'll be 5 turns left in the game. That's $15. $15 can buy you something that gets you like 6 points per turn. 6 points per turn times 5 turns, so 30 points. Yeah, great. Good job. Good job not having that worker, not having that money in the third round.
Yep. Now, it's not just with workers. There's a cycle where there are points in the game where all 4 commodities will suddenly be out there in force, and you'll be able to buy a whole bunch. You should be able to anticipate when this will happen and be ready for it if it is the kind of card you want to capitalize on.
Yep.
2, the Jews. Pretty much, you should always take a unique one. The more rare it is, you should do whatever you have to do to get it. Even just take it in your hand, deny it to other people. Look at what other people need and take them. You already have 3 authors. Take the 4th one so that Joe can't get one.
Yep. I mean, you look at I've played this game a lot of times, and hardly ever has anyone won without getting a significant number of the unique aristocrats.
You can win and
not letting it, and you also have to prevent other people from getting the unique aristocrats
you can
as
win
much as you can.
With a 2 or possibly 3 aristocrat difference down, as long as you have got the buildings to back it up. But that is difficult to do. And if you're down by more than 3, it's over because there are increasing returns for having more aristocrats.
It's incredibly, like, if you have 7, you get a bunch of points. If you have 8, you get a lot more points for having 8. It's a ludicrous number of points when you look at the scale.
There's a building, an observatory, and it lets you basically look at cards from whatever pile you want early and purchase them. You might think, well, I should use that on the aristocrats at every opportunity to get more aristocrats.
Early in the game, use it on the workers.
Yes, good God.
Because think about it, you get an extra... Workers are hard to get early in the game because there are only so many that get dealt out. If you take a worker extra early in the game, that's $3 times the number of turns left in the game, you win.
There's another building, the pub, the old poob.
Yep. It lets you pretty much just turn money directly into points. So if you have lots of extra money and you're having a hard time getting the cards to get you lots of points, the pub is a good way to just turn your money into a lot of points if you can't do it any other way.
I will say this. There's a way to know pretty exactly how much you should put into the pub at any given time. The simple thing to remember is... later in the game is a better time to be putting money in the pub.
Yeah,
if you're putting money into the pub early in the game, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, at the end of the game, if you're playing well, you should have so much money that you can buy every single card that's worth buying, and then money left over. And that's the money that goes in the pub.
Now, go for combos. Try to get like 4 customs houses.
Yeah, that's what I try to do. Is early in the game, I'll pick like either the markets or the customs houses or one type of building, and then I'll buy as many of that kind of building as I can. So I spend relatively little money and get a lot of points building up throughout the game, and then I have as many workers as I can, obviously, and then I spend all my money trying to get a bunch of different aristocrat Jews.
Make sure every round where aristocrats will come out, that enough will be drawn to where you have the opportunity to buy one.
Yeah, if you're going to be the 4th person to have an opportunity to purchase aristocrats, make sure there are 4 empty spaces on the board at the end of the Kremlin round so that 4 aristocrats get dealt out at least.
Now, this is doubly so for workers. If you're going to have the chair next round, meaning the chair is to your right and is going to pass to you, and it's a 4-player game, you want there to be exactly 5 spaces.
Or 1, if possible.
Yes.
Or, perhaps, yeah.
5 is optimal.
5 is optimal because then you can buy 2 workers and everyone else can only buy 1.
However, if you didn't listen to us and you don't have enough money to buy 2 workers, then for the love of God, don't let 2 workers come up.
Yeah, because then the guy to the left of you will be able to buy 2 workers without having to do anything, and then, he owns.
Yeah, remember, anytime you do not
take
take
next
advantage...
round, he'll get 2 workers again because he'll have the chair from you.
Anytime you do not take advantage of a situation to deny someone else something, you've given it to them, and that is worth a lot to them at the end of the game.
I found the scale. If you have 7 different Jews, it's 28 points. 8 different Jews is 36 points. 9 is 45 points. So it's sort of a 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 deal.
You can win
it's
this
a little
game
Fibonacci scale
as a dark horse.
That's not the right scale, right?
With almost entirely aristocrats and not much else.
Yes. That's Fibonacci's the right one, right?
Now, I'm
You're
trying
not
to wrap this up.
answering me.
I didn't even listen to you. I'm trying to wrap this up.
I know.
Because this will be a long episode. We got it. Of course, luckily, the game's kind of solved. There's
It's
not
close
much
to
left.
Fibonacci.
Let's see. What else is really important to winning this game?
Playing it a few times to get the feel.
All right. In terms of knowing how, what worker to buy, like you see a bunch of workers, which one do I buy? I'm not going to tell you exactly because you can be done by an algorithm. You should be able to look at any possible set of workers in front of you and workers on a board in a game of St. Petersburg, and not only know exactly which one you should buy, but know exactly which ones every other player will buy. You can calculate this perfectly.
I mean, it's sort of obvious because everyone always wants to buy the cheapest possible worker they can buy. And if there's two workers that cost equal amounts to you, because that's very possible, buy the one that you know someone else really wants. Thus, they'll be forced to spend more on the workers.
And there's other things to it, but basically, you should get to the point where you can look at the workers and know exactly how, the worker phase should be automatic. You shouldn't even have to play that phase. Everyone should just take the ones they know they'll get and pay their money.
Yep. Especially in the first round. But we play the first round of the game. We basically turn over the number of workers, then see who goes first, and then we just deal them out because we know exactly who wants which ones, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
And we start with 6 extra money because we know that everyone's going to have 2 workers and get 6 money at the end of that phase.
Yep. All right. Are we done?
Pretty much. I mean, beyond that, upgrades, buy the Jews. Don't buy the buildings.
Well, some of the buildings are okay sometimes.
Oh, buy the buildings opportunistically.
Yes.
Do not ever buy a building
Yes.
if you could have gotten a unique aristocrat
Yep.
instead.
With the upgrade cards in general, you are basically only the only reason to get the upgrade cards is because there are unique aristocrats in there that cannot be gotten any other way. So you want to have lots of authors or administrators, extra, duplicate administrators, duplicate authors, so that you can upgrade them to, say, popes, because there's only one pope in the game. So if you have an author, only one, and you upgrade it to the pope, you still only have one unique aristocrat. If you have 2 authors, you upgrade one to the pope, now you have 2 unique aristocrats, and that's a huge jump in points.
And also, buying that one aristocrat, even if you have a duplicate, you get the discount, and then you've denied someone else because a lot of the higher level ones, there aren't so many in the game.
No.
And they're not guaranteed to come up.
To upgrade workers is usually a good idea earlier in the game because it allows you to get a sort of a continuing supply of points without diminishing your supply of money at all. And the upgrade buildings are sort of something you buy opportunistically. You don't go for them unless you're really trying to win without the aristocrats. But if, let's say you have a building and an upgrade building comes out and it only costs you 1 to get it, right? And it'll give you a whole bunch of money or something, sure, why not? It won't hurt. But I've never seen anyone win really big with those.
Now, the last and most important thing, and this is pretty much the key to victory.
Pajamkin's Village?
Well, you should always buy Pajamkin's Village.
Yes.
Always. But beside that, there's a point in the game where you will have to make a conscious shift from money generation as your focus to point generation as your focus. That is the round where you might even forego the aristocrats or whatever, but suddenly you spend all your money on the library or something, some big point building.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that right before everyone else does it gives you a 75% chance of winning.
But doing it a tiny bit early ruins you because you won't have enough money, and doing it a tiny bit late means everyone else got it before you and they got more points than you.
I've had very good success winning against people who aren't the front row crew I've played this game with a million times by switching to point generation in the 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah, you basically in the first part of the game get as much money as you can, right? And because everything keeps making stuff as the game goes on. You buy money now, you'll have money forever. And then at the exact right moment when you know you have enough money-making resources to power you through the rest of the game, just buy stuff that makes points as much as you possibly can, and then that'll make you the most possible points for the rest of the game. And that could add up to 30, 40 points over the course of the whole thing.
And I guess eventually you'll solve the game because, like we said, there's a few problems with balance in terms of if the early aristocrats come up big, but also, Like we said, the game is super fun, even if you're playing it with 3 people who are playing optimally.
I mean, we've gotten to the point where we don't even really need to play the game. Like, we can just sit down, deal the cards out, and I can tell you exactly what everyone is going to do on their turns. You know, as long as they're all skilled players who know what they're doing. I'll be like, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And I know exactly what everyone's going to do, and I'm not wrong. They'll be like, yes, I was going to do that.
Because there are only really 2 dark horse. It's kind of like Kalis has this, where there's the way to win, and then there are the 2 dark horse ways to win. And beyond that, every other strategy is suboptimal.
Yep.
It's not a strategic game because you choose between the way to win and the slightly less likely ways to win, and it's all just tactics and numbers. You got to keep all the numbers in your head all the time.
It's a super fun game. It's a super great game. It's a super awesome game in every way, except for the fact that eventually, after playing it a lot, you'll just know exactly what everyone's going to do, and there's no real decisions going on.
Right. And on that note, I'm going to go make some quesadillas.
All right.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.